Awesome, so now we will start talking about for loops. What is a loop? A loop is a structure or a tool in programming that we can use to repeat a sequence of lines of code. So we can repeat a code block as many times as we need to. We have two types of loops, for loops and while loops. Let's talk about for loops first. This is an example of a for loop. For loops can use range or not. We will see the two different variations. We write the keyword for, then we write the name of a variable. This variable is called the loop variable, and it will be updated automatically as we repeat our code. Then we write the keyword in, and then we find range. Range will return a sequence of integers that will be used during the iterations. In programming, an iteration is just a repetition of the code. Then we find a colon. The colon is here because we are using a compound statement like we used in conditionals. They have to be there, otherwise you will have a syntax error like you can see right here. It says that it expected the colon. Then we have indentation, because loops have a header and a body. And for a line of code to belong to the loop, it has to be indented. If we write it here, we will see an error because it's not part of the loop. Okay, so after we have that, we can see the output. Let's see what we get. Let's kill the terminal from the previous output and let's run the program again. We see 0, 1, 2, 3. Why do we see that? We are running print 4 times. When we write the loop, the body of the loop will be repeated as many times as we set up in the header. Why are we looping 4 times? Well, because range, when you pass a value 4 to range, this function will return a sequence of values 0, 1, 2, and 3. By default, the sequence will start from 0. Yes, again, we start counting from 0 just like we did with indices. And we stop at 3, 1 less than the number that we passed here. These values will be assigned one by one to the loop variable, and we can use that variable inside our loop, inside the body of the loop, if we need to. It's not necessary, we can just print a value or do whatever we need, but usually we use it, and we update this value. First, the value 0 will be assigned to I, then the value 1, and then the value 2, and then the value 3. And each time, the body of the loop will be executed with the updated value of I. That is why we see 0, 1, 2, and 3 in the output. We print 0, we print 1, 2, and 3. And just to show you that it's not necessary to use the loop variable, let's print hello world. But you will see that the result prints hello world 4 times, because we had 4 iterations. In the loop you can do more complex things too. Let's say that you want to update a variable. Like here you want to print the value of x, and you want to increment x by 1 in each iteration. You print the value, you increment it by 1. Here you can see that. We start at 5, we increment it by 1, and we stop after the 4th iteration. So in the for loop, we are determining how many iterations we will have. And we are doing that with range. That is why we typically use range in for loops in Python. Right now we're starting from 0, but we don't necessarily have to start from 0. We can start from any number that we need. For example, let's change this to 2 and let's end at the value 8 without including it. So the last value will be 7. Let's change this loop. This call to range will return the following sequence: 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we should see the output with these values, because they will be assigned to the variable I one by one per iteration. Let's see the output. From 2 to 7. Exactly what we predicted. So we can use 2 parameters. And we can also use 3 parameters. Let's say that we want to increment the values by 2 instead of 1. To go from 2 to 4, from 4 to 6, and from 6 to 8. But since 8 will not be included, the last value should be 6. That is when we add 2 as a step. Exactly what we anticipated, 2, 4, and 6. Great! We can also iterate over a sequence. For example, if we have a list of favorite colors, blue, purple, and green, we can use a loop to do something with each one of those elements. We say, for each color in my list of favorite colors, I will print that color in the terminal. Notice that here we are not writing I and j are usually used when we are working with range because we will have integers. But when we iterate directly over a list or a tuple or a dictionary, we usually write descriptive variable names here. So if this is a list of colors, the variable will be a color. Okay, so we see blue, purple, and green, one by one. And we can work with these values. We don't necessarily just have to print them. When you start writing more complex programs, you will start to see how loops are super powerful. And we can also iterate over the elements of a dictionary. Let's write our chemical symbols again. We have our chemical symbols here, and let's say that if we want to do something with each key and its corresponding value. So, for every element and every symbol, in chemical symbols.items returns a sequence with the matching keys and values from the dictionary. So we can iterate over them and work with them simultaneously. Element and symbol. Yes, we can define more than one loop variable if we separate them with a comma and a space before the in keyword. So in this case, we can do that because items will return a sequence with 2 matching values or 2 associated values, element and symbol. And we can work with them simultaneously in the same iteration. Like this, hydrogen with its corresponding symbol and so on for every chemical symbol. Great, so now you know the fundamentals of for loops and how you can work with them. You can learn more about the range function and all its variations in the official Python documentation. So now, let's continue and let's see a few examples of the other type of loop that we can use, while loops.